Intuitive eating doesn't mean that you have to eat super healthy and super clean 100% of the time, but it's also not a hall pass to just eat junk food and desserts all the time. There is a method to this very ambiguous kind of term of intuitive eating, and today I'm going to show you the steps and the foundation that you need in order to start your intuitive eating journey. So before we get started, I would love to hear from you. What brought you here to learning about intuitive eating? Answer in the comments below. I would love to hear what is it that you are looking to get from intuitive eating and what brought you to learning about it as well. So what is intuitive eating anyway? Well, basically it's making food choices based on what you intuitively feel will nourish and support you most. Intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. It's also defined as a thing that one knows or considers likely from instinctive knowing rather than conscious reasoning. So basically, intuitive eating is being able to trust your instincts and your intuition in order to make food choices for yourself. Developing your intuition is a journey in itself. You can develop your intuition through practice and basically giving yourself opportunities or allowing yourself opportunities to make decisions based on what you are intuitively guided to. What that could look like is choosing low risk decisions and making those decisions based on your intuition. So start with low risk decisions. Should I wear this today or should I wear that today? And whatever you feel most intuitively drawn to, or whatever your first instinct is, go with that. And make those small little decisions based on your intuition. You can start to take those clues and insights from those low risk decisions that you've made and start to pay attention to what the outcome is and how you feel. Pick up on the clues that are letting you know, yes, this is a yes for me, or this is a clear no for me. And just write those things down. What are the feelings that you have when you ask this question to yourself and then you answer? If there is a clear yes or a clear no, you may feel something different in your body. You may have some kind of signal that lets you know yes. And write those things down, pay attention to them, and just start to notice them in other situations when you're making bigger and bigger decisions. Another part of developing your intuition is starting to really listen to your body. Listening to your body is something that is essential for intuitive eating because this is the integration of intuition with the body, and the body's signals and listening to the body is how you will be making decisions for your food. So listening to your body in all situations is really important for developing your intuition. And so many of us are taught to ignore our bodies and not listen to our bodies from a pretty young age. And you can think back into your childhood or other experiences that you've had growing up where you have learned not to listen to your body. I know for me, this was really present in school. It was always like a big deal. If you had to go to use the bathroom, you had to ask for permission. And if you had to go more than once, it was like kind of frowned upon. So I kind of learned as a kid that I had to hold my pee and not go to the bathroom when my body was telling me to go because of what someone might say, or because I only had this many hall passes to go, like 3 hall passes to go and use the bathroom as a kid in elementary school. And really thinking back to childhood and the things that you learned in childhood about how to listen to your body or when to ignore your body, that's going to give you so much insight, because when we're kids, we learn things in such a way that it becomes completely intuitive almost. It feels like it's connected to intuition because we learn it in a way that we just lock it into our minds and our bodies, and we think that that's the way to do things because we're learning how to be from the adults around us. So thinking back to childhood and looking at times when you've learned to ignore your body and start to unravel that and just be mindful of when you are doing those things or kind of acting out those patterns that are about being disconnected from your body. And the more you start to release those patterns, the easier it will be to start intuitive eating. Another part of developing your intuition is going to be learning to really put yourself first. There are so many situations where we put our own needs aside in order to accommodate other people. And there is a certain level of, being able to have a little bit of flexibility in order to accommodate others, but we do need to have boundaries around what is most important for us and what our needs are before we start thinking about other people's needs and desires. So when we are constantly putting other people's needs or desires ahead of our own needs, then we are basically shutting off our intuition, and we're basically separating ourselves from the intuitive guidance that we could be receiving from our bodies to step away from a situation, to go for a walk, to take a breather, to get up from the desk, to step away from your screen or whatever it is. So next we need to look at intuitive eating versus emotional eating. And this is where we really start to get into the good stuff of being able to distinguish intuitive eating from food cravings that are tied to emotions or traumas from the past. And it's really important to separate those two things because a lot of times they can seem intertwined, like, oh, this is what I'm craving, this is what I'm being drawn to, but actually it is something that's based on an emotion or a trauma from the past. So emotional eating is when we are eating a food that is tied to a specific emotion or wanting to experience a certain emotion or wanting to suppress a certain emotion. And that's going to be emotional eating. And emotional eating can also be connected to things that we've learned in our childhood, things that we've learned through traumatic experiences. And that kind of traumatic experience or the emotions that are tied up in those food cravings is not intuitive. That is a trauma to be released, or those are emotions to be released, and that's separate from intuitive eating. So a good way to start distinguishing emotional eating from intuitive eating is to ask the question, what aspect of my mind, my body, my spirit is this food nourishing? So when you feel a food craving for whatever it is, asking your body, asking yourself, what is it that I'm actually trying to nourish by eating this food? And that is going to be the biggest step to being able to distinguish between emotional eating and intuitive eating. And then you can also pay attention to how you feel when you're eating that food and how you feel after you've eaten that food. So if you sit down to eat that food and your mind is super frazzled and you're just not settled, or you're feeling a really strong emotion, or if you notice that you crave a certain type of food after some kind of experience or something that could have some kind of interaction as well, then just start to pick up on experiences and interactions that are catalysts towards certain foods, and then also emotions or a desire to express an emotion or suppress an emotion that is a catalyst to eat a certain food. And then after you've eaten that food, just pay attention to the feelings that come up. How do you feel after? Do you feel nourished and clear in the head and energized? Or do you feel just stuck? And start to notice what those feelings are, and that will give you an idea of the emotions that could be wrapped up in that food. And once you recognize that a food is tied to an emotion, that's where you can start to ask more questions and just ask your body, like, what is this emotion that's coming up? Where does this stem from? And pay attention to your dreams, pay attention to day-to-day interactions, pay attention to thoughts and things that spring into your mind, because you'll get answers and intuitive guidance as to what that food actually means for you, and maybe even some of the trauma or some of the emotions that that food could be tied to from the past that maybe you're ready to release. And then as you come into the awareness of what emotion or trauma that food is tied to, you can start to make better decisions. The next step is going to be gut healing. And gut healing is important because the foods that we crave have a lot to do with our gut bacteria. It has a lot to do with a balance of gut bacteria, and if we have an imbalance of bacteria that are unhelpful or seen as bad bacteria, then that's going to influence our food choices. And the same goes for parasites. An imbalance of bad bacteria to good bacteria means that when bad bacteria are dominant, then we're going to crave things that help to feed those bad bacteria. And that usually consists of junk food and sugar. So being able to recognize that and work on your gut healing is going to be really important for intuitive eating as well. Now let's go into implementation of your intuitive eating practice. Okay, so you want to start intuitive eating, you are working on your gut healing, you're really starting to distinguish emotional eating versus intuitive eating. The next step that you need to take is to set an intention. Intuitive eating has a lot to do with the intention that you've set for yourself as far as the kind of relationship that you wish to have with food and how you would like your food to nourish your body, but also play into how you're experiencing life. So for many years, my intention for eating was focused on healing my menstrual cycle, getting rid of pain, and developing my intuition. So the foods that I chose were based on reducing inflammation, being able to feel clear in the head after I eat, and also feeling energized. And I also wanted to make sure that I was eating foods that were helping to heal my gut, because after getting off of birth control and after taking painkillers for so many years, I knew that gut healing was going to be really important. So the implementation of intuitive eating is first setting the intention of what it is that you want to accomplish or what it is that you want to experience through food and through nourishing your body. Implementing an intuitive way of eating is going to be really focused on distinguishing emotional eating versus intuitive eating, focusing on intuitive development, focusing on gut healing, and then it's going to be about exploring. This video is getting a little bit long, so I will do a separate video on how to eat in alignment with your ancestry and a separate video on how to eat in alignment with your menstrual cycle. For now, check out this video up here for how to live in alignment with your menstrual cycle and start cyclical living. Until then, I will see you again next time. Bye. These days, my intention is to what is my intention? Intuitive eating. Okay. Just relax. Just relax.